right. I am absolutely delighted to say that I have Cherryh, pronounced like Sarah with a sh, Cansler on the podcast today on the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Alex. I'm happy to be here.
We've just hit it off for the last 15, 20 minutes of the pre-recording of this. So I'm very excited to like dive into lots and lots of different topics that we have lined up. We're talking like the fast casual top 100. We're talking about women in hospitality, opportunity, so many things we'll touch on over the next like half an hour to 40 minutes. And I'm honestly so excited to like have Cherryh here. So honestly, Cherryh, thanks so much for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure.
No worries.
I always like to ask people when they come on the show, and I don't know why I keep making this joke because I feel like I've done it in about 30 episodes, but it makes me laugh, so I'm going to say it, which is like I have a habit of underselling and botching introductions. So I like to have my guests introduce themselves instead. So, would you mind telling us a bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are today?
All right. Well, like Alex said, my name is Cherryh Cansler. I am the Vice President of Events for Networld Media Group, which is the parent company of several magazines that I hope you guys read: fastcasual.com, qsrweb.com, Food Truck Operator, Pizza Marketplace, and a bunch of other magazines. And I'm also the day-to-day editor of Fast Casual. So my job is to cover the fast casual restaurant industry. I write stories every day about what's going on in the news and the people moving and shaking. And then I also run all of our events. So our events, we just had the Restaurant Franchise and Innovation Summit. We do that every
Yeah.
March, where we bring about 300 C-level executives together across the restaurant industry for networking and educational opportunities. And then we have the Fast Casual Executive Summit coming up in October in Denver, which is more of a focus on fast casual brands. Same kind of thing, 300 or so executives together for educational networking. So yeah, I love my job. I work from home in Kansas City. We're headquartered in Louisville. When I'm not here in Kansas City, I'm on the road at events. So it's a great place to be. So you should come visit me in Kansas City sometime and see the
Well,
Super Bowl champions.
I was going to say, as a 49ers fan, which I've mentioned many times on this podcast, I'm
Oh,
devastated.
sad.
Well, it just goes to show, like, know the rules of the game, and you might stand a chance, and also maybe have Taylor Swift on your side, and you also might have like societal momentum behind your team.
Yeah. Although I've gotten a lot of bashing, like when I always wear my Chiefs gear in the airport when I travel, and like I've had people come up to me and be like, "Oh, are you a real fan? Or are you just a Taylor fan?" And I'm like, "Well, I've been a Chiefs fan since I was a baby, but I also love Taylor Swift, so I'm living the dream right now."
Yeah,
So
like, I mean,
yeah,
I totally put it back
step
in their
off.
face. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I would love to be both. I don't
Yeah,
have I don't have
exactly.
any. I have nothing.
It's great.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's awesome. And I mean, you're like, when we were chatting offline, like you were just saying, like, what a sort of passion you have for fast casual as well. And it's actually kind of amazing because that industry has just kind of come from, nothing in the last like 10 years. I mean, really, since you started, like, it's kind of become what we think of like food now in the United States. Like, everywhere is fast casual.
Yeah, everybody wants to be fast casual. It's one of the few restaurant sectors that is still growing.
Yeah.
And, people will come send me press releases and they'll say I'm a fast casual brand. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, probably QSR, but that's okay. We like all restaurants. So it's kind of the darling, I think, of the industry. It's a fun beat to cover. The executives are amazing. They're very
Yeah.
helpful. I'm sure they are happy to go on panels and podcasts and give advice and help one another. They're not too afraid that there's too much competition out there. So that's really great.
Yeah, I'm glad that nobody's afraid of me. It really helps getting guests on the podcast. Shout out to all the people ignoring my emails. But I would say this, like you did say, like, oh, I'm not so sure that's more of a QSR than fast casual.
Mm-hmm.
Define the difference for us there in your mind then.
So I have three things that I look at when I'm just defining. So fast casual, the menu is a little bit higher quality and the price point's a little bit higher than your average, like McDonald's or drive-through menu. The atmosphere is a little bit better. So I look at it as like, if I was on Tinder, would I be okay meeting a date at McDonald's? Probably not. But would I do it at Panera or Starbucks or Chipotle? Probably, not a terrible idea. So that's one way that I look at it. And then obviously you have to order at the counter. So some of the more casual brands are trying to be more fast casual these days with having their to go and their delivery offerings. But still, if you don't have a way where if you go in and dine in and you have a server, then you're not fast casual. So that's kind of what we look at it as. But as you know, lines are blurred, especially with COVID, with everybody doing delivery and carry out. It's kind of all over the place now. And I don't think the consumer really cares. I think just industry people care.
I would second that. I don't think I have ever spoken to anybody outside of this job that has referred to Shake Shack as a fast casual or like Chipotle as a fast casual,
Yep.
as much as that's a place where I can get lunch or a quick dinner or a quick bite. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I think, and that's all well and good. You know what I mean? Like, and they're different products serving different people, different times, different life stages. And, hooray for choice, like, I guess like when we were growing up, that did not exist. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, it's amazing that we've seen such an evolution in this business. And I'm I'm obviously like, we obviously call our podcast Fast Casual, which, to be fair, I did not know was another thing that really existed. I thought I was really clever walking home right now, and I was like, fast and casual. I could have a 20-minute like podcast. It's going to be like the daily podcast. That's right. That was the genesis.
We own the fastcasual.com domain. Yeah. So we take credit for launching that whole word, that whole
it's great
thing. So if you ask anybody at my company, we say that we invented it. Now, I don't know if that's true, but we own the domain. So I feel like
that's half the battle.
That's pretty badass.
That's half the battle. I recently saw on Twitter somebody launched a company that had a very similar name to us that also did something quite similar. And I was like, did they even look online? Like, did they not see my podcast?
Yeah. You're like, how much would it take for me to buy that off of you?
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, God, I've bought so many domains recently for us that I'm like, oh, you should honestly, it's that's the whole thing. Anybody want to get into software? But
I know you've got to buy them up, anything like you, because someone could just easily kind of spoof you or take it, or it's confusing. So yeah, we have a whole bunch also.
Yeah, the confusing is the thing. Like, I mean, I don't really mind if you go to landed.com, for example, I think it's like an insurance business. I think there's like a home brokerage, a home mortgage or something. And I'm like, I'm wishing them well as a company. I'm just like,
at least it's not like a porn site.
Can you please give me the .com?
Yeah.
It's like, I really want the .com. But yeah, so spam filters. But here, one of the reasons why we got you on the pod is because you're actually very influential. And you're very influential, not just in fast casual, but in like hospitality in general. I mean, you're like a famous person. Like, you're you're a famous, like, I guess, do we call you a journalist? Like, is that what?
Absolutely. Yes,
call you? Like,
absolutely.
Formally call you a journalist?
Yes.
Yeah, like, you're famous for that. And one of the things that like kind of brought you into our orbit, it was kind of like a bunch of things. Like, we had International Women's Day on March 8th, which, fun fact, everybody, is also Cherryh's. I feel like I'm butchering your name, but that was
Cherryh. So you're just making it a little bit more complicated and churching it up a bit. It's Cherryh, just like share a glass of water.
Share a shot. Okay.
Share a shot. Share a shot of vodka.
All right. So it's also Cherryh's birthday. So round of applause, everybody.
Thank you. I take presents even late. So
even late. That's fair. 5 weeks later, it's still statute of limitations. Exactly. And you were telling me offline, and it was like, well, let me like rephrase my thought first and foremost. So like, you do write a annual sort of blog post about women in sort of leadership, inspiring women in hospitality and fast casual. Actually, one of the people you wrote about in your list this year was actually on my podcast. Was one of my very early guests, which was Carissa DeSantis.
Okay.
Who was Bricks Holdings, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
I do remember that. And a great guest. And like, one of the things that we've been trying to like do as well, like with our content marketing as well, is like being more intentional with giving airtime and oxygen to women in the space. I've been, reading all those sort of McKinsey reports that exist, and they don't make for great reading for like women in hospitality. I mean, was it like 65% of entry level roles in hospitality are women, and then less than 25% are in leadership positions?
That is exactly what I have in my notes.
You were going to mention that.
Yay. Yes.
We're both drinking from the same well. Right. But the point I'm making is that, like, I think that we have a duty of care, given that we participate in this industry. We're a vendor in the space that sells into hospitality. We have a female CEO of ourselves. And I see it as like, you know, a no-brainer for us to like have conversations, no matter how hard, no matter how difficult, no matter how much people don't want to shed light on these sort of like numbers or have these sort of difficult conversations. I'm like, yeah, like YOLO, let's have this conversation. I'd rather have it than
Right.
not. And I guess, what I'm getting at in the end is that like you wrote this and you write these like posts and you get like this kind of level of like insight from these sort of leaders in the space. Like of the blog post, which we'll put in our notes afterwards, of the blog post that you wrote, what were like sort of the key takeaways for you? Like when you were interviewing all these women, like we're in 2024 now, like what were you taking away?
Yeah, so I think this is the eighth year I've done this. Women in the Lead series where I
Yep.
interview, anywhere between 15 and 30 fast casual executives. And I've always, asking them, how did you get there? How is it being, a leader in a male dominated industry, things like that. And each year, I think it's gotten a lot easier for me to find more women to interview. So that is good news. I feel like it is getting better and that more people are paying attention to that. But overall, I think the advice, it's basically advice pieces. And women are just saying you have to advocate for yourself. I mean, women are not normally as confident as men when it comes to applying for jobs and applying for leadership, because if they look at the list of job requirements and if they don't have every single one perfectly, they're like, oh no, I
Yeah.
can't, I'm not going to apply for that. Whereas studies show that men will look at that and they think, oh, I have most of these, I'm good to go and I'll learn the rest. And I think women have to do a better job of being more confident, putting ourselves out there and just saying, maybe I don't have every skill, but I can learn that skill, or finding someone to help you. Like I have a female CEO and she's kind of taken me under her wing. And there are like 5 things that I've talked to her last year that I want to learn from her.
Yeah.
And she's teaching me that. And so I think it takes women like her to bring other women up. And then I'm hoping that when I'm learning from her, the women who work for me, I'm passing that down, and then they'll pass that down and they'll pass that down. And eventually we'll have more parity than we are now. But it is getting better. I see it getting better when I'm just booking speakers for events. I always try to make sure there's enough women and people of color, and not just settling on the first people I see,
Yeah.
taking a step further to maybe dig a little deeper to find someone that's a little bit different, that represents the other people in the industry as well. And it's gotten easier as we're moving on. So that's good news.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, yeah, I mean, like we're 2024 today, and I guess I kind of joke with people. It's like I can't believe we're having this conversation. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like that, like you know, the reality of the situation, and not just in hospitality, but in corporate America in general, is that there's just an underrepresentation of women and people of color in leadership positions across the board. And I think the onus is on everybody to continue that conversation and really try to highlight not just the problem of that, but also like illuminate ways that we can have like sort of solutions in the workplace for this. I think it's interesting to me. Like I did a pod last week with 2 women on this very topic, like where we went down into sort of like microaggressions was one of the kind of topics that we had, and it was like for me as like a sort of like Caucasian male, foreign Irish guy, like as
the
in always.
middle-aged white dude is
Yeah,
what.
I am white bread, and I like none of these things ever kind of come to me. But there's the data that we have from McKinsey, and I'm sure, I mean, if you're looking at the same report I am, which was like I think their
Mhm.
2020 report, so it's like 4 years old, but like still it's there. Like that. Taking credit for other people's jobs. How many times that happened to women? Like little
Right.
things that don't appear little are actually, an aggregate of a bigger problem that I think people like women in particular face in the workplace, which is a sort of a structural bias. We talk about like, you know, the need to absolutely tick the box on every single line in a job spec for, an average woman to feel like, I don't want to say like an average woman, but like the average of
Yeah, just a
women,
typical
yeah, the
person,
typical
right?
woman rather, to like apply for a role. It's funny, like, I mean, I always use the example of like gendered language, and I don't think on its own phrases don't seem to necessarily be harmful. And what I mean by that is when you hear a phrase like shoot from the hip, like that doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with that. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, objectively, that's just like a phrase. It means you're a risk taker, or it means like you're,
Off the cuff.
energetic,
Yeah.
or, you're kind of bold or something, like he shoots from the hip, but
Mhm.
it's like, that's a cowboy language for a guy taking a gun out of his pocket. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's where it stems from. And there are studies, like LinkedIn does data on this all the time, which is like the use of gendered language in job specs. And I always use the example of like more kind of male kind of words, like rock star, for example, and women are just much less likely to apply for a job by using the word rock star in the in the job spec than not. So you might think that like you're writing a nice job spec, but even the language that you use within it, whatever your opinion on anecdotes of whichever, it's like the data doesn't lie. There's just less women will apply for that job. And what does that do to your organization where, you're like, you're trying to create an environment to like promote and find more women in the organization and get more diversity in your leadership, either with women or with people of color, and like designing these sort of processes, like, I mean, to like solve for this. I'm very fascinated by the whole conversation because like, I guess I'm the white bread guy, and I mean, I'm somewhat read on the topic, and I'm always here to be informed and removed from my own
Well,
bias
I
on
really
this
like, I
subject.
appreciate that. I think that I mean, I love men who are allies like that. I mean, men are not the enemy. I always say that. I love men, love them. And I love I mean, I really do. And I just I'm thankful for men in my career throughout who have, stepped up and have had that same kind of outlook as you do, that there's room for all of us. And like you said, just like little things like saying you guys. I mean, I say that and I have to be like, oh no, delete, not you guys. Hey guys, like, no, I mean, I don't mean anything by it, but it's like that saying is when you can do better once you know. So it's little things like that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
they're
I
not
think
they're
it's
not
getting
designed
better.
to like antagonize, like that's the thing. I think like, obviously all of, this is very, I mean, if you weren't on Twitter, you wouldn't know this was a hot button issue. But my God, like, I mean, what a cesspool that place is. And like, yeah, like persuade
It
me
really is
otherwise.
a cesspool.
You know what I mean? This the discourse is just appalling. And it's just like, yeah, it's a terrible place for this
Well, and
kind of a conversation.
when you mentioned, some of the microaggressions that women face, like with men taking credit for their work or anybody taking credit for their work, even another woman, if I were to normally, if I were to call that man out, then it's like, wow, she's such a bitch, but if a man would
Yeah,
do it, that's just normal. So those little things like that I think that some people don't realize that we do face those, and those are things that we have to, I mean, we literally have meetings and discussions, women, all the time about, oh, how do I get this point across without coming off like I know everything? Because if I put out my opinion and I'm right and I'm telling someone he's wrong, then they're going to think I'm just hateful or shrew, or just annoying and everything, where if it was a man, it's, oh, he's so smart. So those little things are just stuff that we have to deal with in our everyday lives.
totally. And I mean, this is what I mean by like shedding light on it, because I think like, my kind of taking it would be that I don't think the structural bias is such that I don't think people would realize that this is still happening,
Mhm.
and it's like bringing it to light constantly. And I think, the sort of perception of like pushing back to your example, like if, like, oh, she's angry, like she's like,
Right.
whichever, it's such a trope. You know
She's
what I
so
mean? It's
emotional.
just, yeah.
She's so emotional. I'm
I
like,
can't
"Really?"
believe people still think like that. Like, I mean, as a man myself in the workplace, and I've been in the American workplace since 2012, and I'm like, I cannot believe, that some of this stuff, like it's some like ludicrous situations that I've heard from people
Yeah, it's
still
still
exist. You
happening.
know what I mean? Like I hear it in so many industries, and again, not just hospitality. Do you know? I mean, maybe
Yeah.
that's made in hospitality, but like not just. It's like I mean, it's a
Yeah, I
global
mean, it's still
issue.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's
It's
like
everywhere. And people joke about the whole Taylor Swift thing, but there's a reason why she's resonated with so many young women, because she is one really successful woman who is saying, you don't have to apologize for having opinions. You don't have to apologize for making decisions. She's very successful, and still there's people to this day that want to take that away from her. And if it was a man, nobody would be saying that. She's got that song, The Man. If I were a man, I'd be the man. And it's true. I mean, the other day I was talking to a guy at work, and he's like, well, yeah, if my dad was rich and gave me a bunch of money, I might be famous too. And I looked at him and I said, I doubt that very seriously. Yeah, maybe she grew up rich, but she's super
did
talented
she
and like, yeah, I mean, not rich, but she grew up with,
like middle
more than
class?
middle class or whatever. She didn't come
Yeah,
from nothing. But my point is like, No, you couldn't have. Even if your dad had given you money, no, you have to work hard and be talented.
Yeah.
And it's like he could not handle giving her that credit. And I think it was because she is a woman. If he wouldn't say that about anybody else,
Yeah, I
a
wonder what
man,
their
it's very frustrating.
opinion on Michael Jackson would probably be, but like that's near here nor there, you know what I
Right.
mean? But like, it's like when you see like Charlie Woods, Tiger Woods' son, like I mean, the guy's going to be a professional golfer. I'm pretty sure he can't just like appear on the tour. Like he has to be good enough to get there. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Like you
Right.
can earn your way to it, and quite clearly Taylor's obviously an extraordinary prodigy. And I mean, she's a lightning rod for, I guess, culture wars in this country anyway, like in that cesspool that is
Yeah.
Twitter and the rest of the like dark areas of the internet that for whatever reason seem to have an enormous problem with her being, proud about who she is, about her position on female rights and her position on sort of equality and access to equality. And I mean, there's no doubting that she's without a doubt the greatest pop culture phenomenon of this century. Like, there's
Sure.
nobody, maybe Justin Bieber, like, I mean, in his sort of, but like not touching every corner of like,
Right.
society. Like, I know that say my missus, like her nieces 6 and 7 are like, Karma is the gat and the Chiefs. And
Yeah.
like, it's like, and all the way up
That
to
was
her
pretty good.
mother, who's like, I what in her late 30s, like early 40s.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And they're all participating in this. And so like, it's like a cultural phenomenon that we've really, I mean, probably not seen since Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? Like,
And I
there's
think
not been,
we've needed we needed it.
yeah.
Like
So
it's
there are, she's
okay. I
always kind
mean,
of, so go on.
yeah. I was gonna say, like, we needed that because she's kind of made it okay for women to stand up and say, yeah, no, that's not right. You're not treating me right, and I'm not a bitch if I say that's not an appropriate way to treat me. That's not being a
Totally.
bitch. That's being a person in this world, and we all have that right. So
Yeah. And I
I
mean,
applaud her for that.
totally. And I mean, everybody's been through it. Everyone, what she sings about, what she talks about, what resonates, what lands is that it relates. It's very relatable. Like, I mean, obviously her life is not relatable, but
Right.
or like, you know, she's always in the back of the car, I'm like, where are you going? Like, like you're never like, you got bodyguards.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, like what she sings about resonates. And I think that's what
Yeah.
matters. And, more power to her. I'm a huge Swiftie. I have tickets for
Yeah.
Edinburgh in June 8th.
Oh,
So,
so exciting. I got to see her in Kansas City, so that was
Oh, that
that
was
was
the
pretty
one.
cool. Yeah, that was the one time I got to see her.
Was she
So
with Trav at the time, or
I think that was just when like speculation was starting that they were starting to date or whatever. We were
yeah.
wondering, but it wasn't. Yeah, we are being from Kansas City, we're obsessed. We're like, she's our queen.
Yeah, jealous. I mean,
Travis is our
you
king and
stole her
she's our
from the
queen.
Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
But here, let's
Well, I
get
don't know
out of
how we got on Taylor Swift, but it's a good day if I get to talk about her and the
Hey,
Chiefs. I mean, this has
women in the
been a
workplace.
highlight of my day.
We were talking about microaggressions and then
Yes,
up with Taylor
exactly.
Swift. So I guess whatever, like
The whole
yeah,
gaslighting thing,
yeah,
exactly.
the whole gaslighting thing, exactly. Okay, so anyway, big thing that we want to call out for you is that you have the fast casual top 100 coming out next month in like 34 days, May
Yes.
19th.
May
Where you're going
19th.
and you're going to honor the top 75 brands and
Yes.
25 execs at a gala, and then you're going to
Yes.
publish that report.
Yeah, so the
And
report, it's a fast casual top 100. I think this is the 18th year, maybe. Don't quote me on that. We have all these brands nominate themselves from around the world. We get hundreds of nominations, and then our editorial board goes through and we do this long, lengthy process of debating and ranking them, and we come out with 75 brands and we pick 25 people. And it's not just the brands who made the most money or had the
yep,
most sales. We look at that, but we also look at their industry leadership, their focus on sustainability, their focus on technology, leadership, innovation. So we take all these factors into account,
yep,
and then we rank the brands, and then we choose 25 people as well. And these are people who are not only leading their own brands, but who are really, serving as an example for the rest of the industry. And when we first started, like I mentioned, we didn't have that many women on the list. And as the years have gotten better, I don't know. I mean, it's just gotten much better. So we have 12 out of the 25 are women,
which
which
is
I'm really
iconic.
excited about. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
so
mean,
excited about it. And we will have this big gala in May at the London House in Chicago, where we invite all the winning
that's
brands and
cool.
the executives. they come for cocktails and a fancy dinner. I call it the Oscars of the restaurant industry. We'll wear all dressy,
Oh,
wear great
well, if you
dresses.
need a host,
Yes, exactly. I mean, you
you
can be my
gotta,
co-host.
yeah, there we go.
So it's my favorite part of it's one of my favorite things of the year, and it's just really a great way. Like we were saying earlier, the industry is really great about giving each other advice and cheering one another on. And this is just a fun event where, we have cocktails and stand up and clap and dance and have fun, and it's just a really feel good evening. When there's a lot of stress going on in the world, it's one way that we can have a little fun together.
Oh God, I forgot about the stress in the world. I was like,
Yeah,
I'm in my cocoon here of the podcast, and I'm like, oh,
in your tiny little
yeah,
box.
my glass case of emotion, isn't that what they said in Anchorman? But I mean, like, and I think it's very important to like mention the fact that like 12 of the 25 like are women. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
all deserving. Obviously, I mean, I don't know the shortlist. You don't have to mention some of the shortlist, but like, what I would say is like the fact that there are like literally up to half of the winner of the 25 are like women, like an extraordinary achievement. You know what I mean? Like, as into your point about where we've come, like at the end of the day, it's like seeing, a parity in leadership across men, women, across like different sort of underrepresented minority backgrounds. We will get there by like initiatives like this, deserving people getting the recognition they deserve, putting them on a pedestal, hyping them, giving them airtime, giving them oxygen to like tell their story, to be who they are, to inspire people in the industry that like there is leadership, there are winners in this space that are
Yeah.
like women and underrepresented minorities. Like, I mean, it's key. Like, when I think about it, it sounds so simple. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like, of course there should be underrepresented minorities, there should be women everywhere. And it's like,
Yeah.
why is there not? Like,
It should be simple. It seems like something like we should not be talking about in 2024. When I did my blog 3 years ago, I think the first sentence was, "I can't believe I'm still having to write this blog." Like we're still having to
oh
do,
God, I love how that we
women
both
in
said that.
leadership. Like when is that going to be over? But we still have to. And I think it's our jobs, people, journalists, and other people, and especially in the trade industries, to I feel like that's part of my responsibility of the power that I have as a journalist is to make sure that every other people get the spotlight too. It's not just the same type of person every time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, like, I mean, is there any standout, or are you not allowed to say? Is there
Oh,
any?
I can say a couple
Oh,
of them.
give us some names. Let's
Okay,
shout it
so
out.
Darden Poors, the CEO of Mad Greens, made it this year, and she's been there for like since 2013, and under her reign, they've bought up Snappy Salads and Tokyo Joe's,
Oh
so
yeah,
she's moving and shaking. I mean, she's kind of taken this small salad company and turning it into a little
love to hear
empire.
that.
Yeah, it's great. And then we have Marissa Corona, who is the franchise operation officer of Wingstop.
Nice.
I think she's been there several years, and their brand is growing hugely. I mean, they
Growing
have
up.
all these goals of 2000. They just opened their 2000th location,
I
and
might have one of
so
their franchisees on my podcast. Wink and a nudge.
ooh, wink, wink, an important one, I hear. And then we have this woman who's been on the list the last couple of years. Her name is Stacey Kane, and she is what we call a fractional chief marketing officer.
Yeah.
And I call her just like a marketing genius. But what she's passionate about is these big fast casual brands, these big brands can hire these amazing chief marketing officers, and they have all of this money and they have all of these resources. But what she does is she specializes in just partnering with 6 to 7 small fast casual brands. Maybe they have 2 locations, maybe they have 4, and she goes in and she works like maybe 10 hours a week or whatever, or 20 hours a month for them, and gets their marketing in line, and then their people who work for them take it out. So it's not like you have to be you don't have to be a Shake Shack to have a good marketing budget. So she's
Oh,
helping
for sure.
smaller brands, and I think that is amazing. So we have a lot of amazing women this year on it. So I'm
That's
excited
awesome.
to have drinks with all of them.
And like, what's amazing is, like, I love how vocal you are about this. You write the blog posts, you're like very hands-on with this award show here. I'm very proud about it. And I know we talked about we kind of touched on some like more negative side of things, the unfortunate sides of data, these kinds of things. What are positive things for you? I know this event obviously putting like 12 people like and sort of like the award ceremony, but like what are positive things you've seen in the space or positive things you're hearing? Like, let's put a touch of positivity on it.
I mean, there is a lot of positive things going on just when you go to these events. People go to all these industry events, and it's still male dominated, but it is much more even. I mean, 10 years ago, I would go to these restaurant events and it'd be like me, two other women, and 300 dudes.
Yeah.
Now it's getting better, and I think that is awesome. I mean, there's more of us coming out, and I think we're getting to be more confident in going for those leadership positions. And I think the men in the industry are helping too. I mean, they're hiring women, and I think I see that as a great start. I mean, there's still all these stats, when it comes to chefs, only 20% of females in the United States are head chefs, the rest are men. But I think, there's groups out there like the Women's, Chef Association and things like that. They're trying to make strides in changing that. So I think we just got to keep doing what we're doing, and we're going to get there eventually.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think like that's the thing. It's like for all the sort of like, overarching sort of goals of like finding parity, equity, like access, like we come a long way. I mean, I guess I never had to experience it in any other kind of way. So like lucky for me, I guess. And I can't really speak for like women's experience in the workplace, but I mean, everyone has stories of like their experience, from like microaggressions to macroaggressions. And I think even the phrase microaggression in and of itself sounds like polarizing in the sense that like the aggression sounds like something like the physical or sounds like kind of violent, when in actual fact it can be, like we said, just somebody taking credit for somebody else's work. Like people have experienced that. And it's also not to say that men haven't as well, but like obviously not at that level. And that McKinsey report that I alluded to, which I do not have in front of me, which I did mention on last week's podcast, like shows like men versus women, like say 2x more times likely to experience somebody like say taking ideas than men, for example. So it's not necessarily saying that it's just like doesn't happen to men. It's just it happens twice as much to women reported.
Right.
And if it's only reported, how many times has it not been reported as well?
Is it not been reported?
Yeah, which is
you're a bitch if you report it.
No. Oh, you may. Okay, so I think I'm like just like buzzing having chatted with you. Like I think it's like very illuminating to hear from somebody so like educated and thoughtful on the topic itself. Like I mean, I'm very much like I think you're an incredible asset to like the business you're in. I think do they realize how lucky they have you?
Can you tell my boss that?
Yeah, you can take the raw footage from this podcast and let it know. Well, like I say, I mean, it's been such a cogent kind of conversation. Like I mean, we've had very much like all access, or like not all access, but like no holds barred, so to speak, on the topic. Sorry, my mic is kind of falling over here as well. I'm not sure what's going on.
Your brand new mic.
Well, I bought a stand and it's janky, I guess.
Better than my brand new mic that doesn't work. It's like up here and it's not even working.
Maybe you need a USB-C, maybe you need something like that. Is yours a wireless one?
Oh, okay. Are you mansplaining that to me?
No,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Like,
that's what mine looks like. See, but it's just I don't know.
You have like that little thing at the back. I don't know. See,
I don't have that little light up thing though. That looks like from Star Wars.
As my friend said to me, I didn't know about the brand really, and my friend goes, "If it's good enough for Joe Rogan, it's good enough for you." And I was like, "All right, I guess I'll take that." Which
there you go.
I've never listened to that podcast in my life. I mean, of course I know who he is, but like,
well, everybody
2 hours long. Yeah, everybody. I mean, he is what made podcasts famous, I guess.
That's true.
I guess like. Seems we're coming up on time. Can you believe that?
I know it flew by. It really did.
If advice to say other female execs in hospitality, what would you say given where we are today? We finished on a bit of a positive note there. Like you feel positive about the progression like you've seen in your time in the career. What advice like would you give to somebody who's like, a female executive like yourself? Like how would you break bread with them on this topic?
Yeah. So communicate and ask for your position. So I'll give you a quick example. I've been with this company almost 10 years, and I think 5 years I was a director of my position, and I wanted to be vice president. And I went to my boss and said, I want to be vice president. And she said, you're not ready yet. And I said, that's fair. Can you tell me what I need to do? Tell me what I need to do because I want to get there. And she gave me 3 things. And I spent the next year and a half working on those 3 things. And then I came to her and said, is it time? And she's like, oh, you're not quite ready. And then 3 months later, it was a big thing. And I got vice president and all that. But I asked for it. I mean, I did not wait for someone to be like, hey, do you want a promotion?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I didn't. And I think that was a lot of it, is just asking and proving that you're willing to work. And I didn't get mad when she's like, you're not ready. I said, okay, thank you. Teach me, what do I need to learn? And I think if you're humble and you ask questions and you are vocal about what you want and what you can do, and you have to prove yourself, I mean, I think we can all get there. And as a woman who now is in a position to hire other people, it is my responsibility to have that same kind of mentality for another woman who comes to me, the women who work for me and say, I want a promotion. And my job is to say, okay, here's what you need to do to get here. Or I think you're great at this, but you need to work on this. It's taking other women with you, because there's more than, it used to be one woman, and that's it. But no, we can all be there. There's a room for all of us.
That's an awesome sentiment, and I appreciate you sharing that. Cherryh, thank you so much for coming on. I have enjoyed every second of this episode. This has been phenomenally fun. So thank you so much for making it such a fun episode.
You're welcome. And I would love to just invite all of you guys to join us in October in Denver at the Fast Casual Executive Summit. I would not be a good events VP if I did not put a little plug out. So I would love for you guys to come. We're going to have amazing speakers, and I'm working on some professional wrestling for some entertainment. So I'm just going to put that out there.
Did you say professional wrestling?
Some wrestling. Yeah, we did our last event. We did our last event at the Chiefs Stadium, so I have to come up with something amazing. So I think wrestling might be in our future. So
that's interesting. I was just at WrestleMania last week.
Oh my God, you got to go? So fun.
Yeah, but people don't need to know about that. Thanks so much. All right, here we go.
Do you want to